In this book, Alvin Toffler talks about how human beings have seen 3 waves of revolutionary change that completely transformed this planet and the human life. Originally, many years ago, human beings were hunters and gatherers. And then we invented agriculture. After we invented agriculture, human life completely changed. It completely transformed. When we were hunter-gatherers, we were mostly nomadic. We would settle down in a certain location, in a certain geography for some period of time, and then move on. We would not settle down completely. But agriculture made us settlers. We settled down. There were generations that would spend their entire life in one location. There were multiple generations that go by in the same house, in the same village. It completely changed us. The challenges were different then. But that was just the first wave. The second wave started somewhere in the 1800s. It was called the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution changed us again, transformed the entire planet one more time. Agriculture was considered to be the outdated technology. The new technology was the factories and the mass production. People like Adam Smith talked about economies of scale and how humans could become replaceable. What you see in this slide on the left-hand side is a group of factory workers assembling widgets. And what you see on the right-hand side is a classroom of students. Now there is a big resemblance. There's a huge uncanny resemblance between both these pictures, the school and the factory. And this resemblance is not coincidental. During the Industrial Revolution, we realized that we needed humans, we needed people who could work in the factories and who could be replaceable. We wanted to prepare our human race so that they could come and work in the factories. They were completely replaceable. The supervisor of a factory would go out to a corner of a street in the morning and pick up a bunch of factory workers. It didn't matter who they were, because the skills that they needed were completely replaceable. They would assemble a small part of a small widget. And we wanted to train our people to become that, and that is why the educational system was designed in such a way that when the students come out, they are ready to be working in the factory. So just like the factory, which has a siren, which declares that it is time to start work, the schools have a bell that declares that it is time to start studying. Just like the factory has a supervisor, the school has a school teacher. The supervisor tells the people what to do, when to do it, how to do it. The school teacher tells the students what to do, how to do it, and when to do it. You are expected to come on time, go on time, and do the same monotonous work every day. No wonder we hate our schools, don't we? But the times have now changed, and it is the third wave. It is no longer the industrial era. It is the super-industrial age now. Businesses have changed. Organizations have changed. Enterprises have changed. And we are no longer expected to be assembling widgets. We are no longer expected to do the same monotonous work every single day. We are expected to be linchpins, decision makers. We are expected to become that small portion which lies between the cart and the wheel, which keeps the wheel and the cart together. We are expected to be knowledge workers. This is a typewriter. This is the first typewriter that went into production in the 1875. This was the industrial era, and this was invented by Christopher Sholes. Remington was the name of the company that actually bought the patent for the Christopher Sholes typewriter and brought it into commercial production. But this was not the first typewriter that was invented. The typewriter was invented in the 1570s, or 1570s. It took 300 years for the typewriter to be, for the invented typewriter to go into commercial production. This is Steve Jobs announcing the first iPhone in the year 2007. And the iPhone went into design in the year 2005. The iPhone was invented in 2005 and went into commercial production in the year 2007, so just 3 years of speed or time to market. Just imagine 300 years of time to market and 3 years of time to market. But you can't blame them. The 1500s and the 1600s and the 1700s were a completely different era. We were not busy doing business at that point in time. We were busy waging wars, and that is exactly what I'm talking about. The world is changing, and it is changing at an accelerated pace. What took hundreds of years in the past to come into commercial production now does not take that much time. It comes into commercial production rather quickly. And the pace is increasing every passing day. 3 years is a long time of time to market. And going forward, it is going to produce. There's a beautiful book written by Seth Godin called The Purple Cow, where he talks about how the customers in the old days used to buy products that they needed, and today they do not. They buy products that attract their attention. He talks about let's assume that you're riding in France, and you're driving in France, and you see the prairies, and you see beautiful cows grazing in the landscape. It's a beautiful scene, and you will look at it for a while, but then you will get bored, and you will not look at the cow unless it's purple in color. It's the same thing. Back in the day, we used to buy products that we needed. Then came television, the media, the internet, devices, and what have you, and today we don't buy products that we need, we buy products that attract our attention. And the attention span of the consumers has also gone down drastically. We get bored very easily with products these days. Our telephones don't last more than 2 or 3 years because new telephones come in, and now you need to buy the new ones. So the organizations have, or the businesses have to now get more and more innovative so that they can attract their customers' attention. And it's not just about the customers. The business landscape is changing drastically. In the 1800s, we were busy doing a lot of things. Today, everybody is busy doing business. We are coming up with newer ways of changing opportunities into profits. Newer ways means innovation. We no longer can depend on the bolt from the blue or a genius idea for innovation. We have to mass produce innovation. We have to manufacture innovative ideas on a regular basis to be able to not just survive in the business, but to thrive. The picture that you see on the right-hand side is taken from the movie called Aliens. It's the Alien series. It's called the xenomorph, and it's a very interesting fictional concept. The alien species that you see here is, it's called a xenomorph because it morphs really quickly. The planet in which it breeds itself, it adapts itself to that planet, and that is why it is the best hunter, the best survivor ever known to mankind, according to the movie. Yeah. The most powerful tool that it has is its agility, and that is what organizations and businesses today require. Agility. Because innovation means large and disruptive change. The small changes that you bring in every day in your business are really not innovation. They are improvement. They are continuous improvement. And I'm not saying that continuous improvement is not required. But implementing continuous improvement, implementing small changes in your business is considerably easier. There is lesser risk. But we all know that with higher risk comes higher profitability. And that is why we need to increase our risk appetite. Agility is the ability of dealing with and responding to change. Innovation is large and disruptive change. Innovation requires an organization to be agile so that the changes that innovation brings in can be responded to by the enterprise. It is agility of an organization that really fosters the culture of innovation. Knowledge of the enterprise helps study the impact of change. If you innovate something today, the innovation is going to mean a drastic change. You need to study the impact that that change is going to bring into your enterprise. The knowledge fosters enterprise agility, because what is risk after all? Risk is the unknown. If you do not know what is going to be the impact of a certain change, then it's a risk, and that is why we are not agile. We don't want to go into an area where we don't know what's going to happen in the future. Knowledge fosters enterprise agility. If you can quickly study the impact of a certain change in your enterprise, then you're agile, and that is why you can get more innovative. Enterprise architecture is the architecture of the enterprise. It is the design of the enterprise. It is knowing the enterprise thoroughly so that you can change it, so that you can respond to the innovative changes that you come up with. Enterprise architecture fosters business innovation. So what is enterprise architecture? There's a lot of confusion around enterprise architecture these days. If you go and look at a job description of an enterprise architecture, you will find all sorts of things. Some of the job descriptions are confusing an enterprise architect with a technical architect. So you'll read something like a technical architect who understands .NET or what have you, some programming language, some technology, and is able to design enterprise applications. So it is assumed that a technical architect who designs enterprise applications is an enterprise architect. It is also confused with solution architect. It is assumed that a person who can provide solutions to enterprise challenges is an enterprise architect. And sometimes it is just blatantly confused with engineering manager. So somebody who is technical, who can provide technical solutions to engineering problems, and who can manage a group of people, is called an enterprise architect. I've read those job descriptions. Enterprise architecture is the architecture of the enterprise embodied in its components, its relationships with each other and the environment, and the principles of its design and evolution. That really is enterprise architecture. Enterprise architecture is the study of the enterprise. It is the study of the various business functions within the enterprise, how they align with each other, what the goals and objectives are, what are the various stakeholders, what their concerns are, how will you achieve those business goals and objectives, the various business processes that are used to achieve those business or these objectives, goals, and drivers. That is enterprise architecture. Enterprise architecture is the study of the business, the various applications that support the business, the various data elements that these applications manage, and the underlying technology that supports everything. Enterprise architecture is also the advisory role. Jack Welch originally came up with the idea of boundaryless organization because he was frustrated that he did not have enough information to make strategic decisions. He was always frustrated that he never had the information that he needed to take a call. He was always taking strategic decisions based on limited information. So he came up with the idea of a boundaryless organization, an organization that would give him the information that he needs when he needs it. So this does not mean that the organization does not have any boundaries at all and everybody has access to all the information. It basically means that there are boundaries to information, just that these boundaries are permeable to enable the business, to enable the business. If it enables the business, if it is good for the business, then you will have access to information. You will have access to information that you need to enable the business. And the job of an enterprise architecture is to enable this infrastructure, to enable a business intelligence framework that could be used to take strategic decisions. It is the advisory role. It is the seat at the strategy table. So when the senior management sits down on the strategy table, coming up with IT strategy based on the business strategy and the business goals that are there, the enterprise architect sits with him, advising him about about the information that he needs, giving him everything that he needs to take that decision. Now there are two aspects to the job of an enterprise architect. The first is the strategist that I was talking about. The strategist provides the business intelligence for future-proofing the IT, for making sure that when we go into the future, when the technology landscape changes, the business landscape changes, we are ready for that change. We have the information that we need to study the impact of the change and respond to it. He helps the senior management build business and IT strategies and provide guidance on forward-looking strategies. But there is another aspect to the job of an enterprise architect. It is called draftsman. This is the beginning of the enterprise architecture job. This is not the strategist role. This is the modeler's role. The draftsman is the person who builds models, who uses the tools of the trade to build the models that are required to capture the information which needs to be provided to the senior management. He goes to the grind of building models. It's not easy. He provides the inward-looking insight. He looks inside the enterprise and he provides the information around how are the applications communicating with each other. What are the various data elements that are required by these applications? What are the business processes which are leveraging these applications and this data? And what is the underlying technology which is being used for these applications communicating with each other? He studies if there are any redundancies within the enterprise. Are there any multiple applications performing the same business function? Are we spending extra money on licenses that are not required? Are there any applications which are missing? Are there any processes which are longer than necessary? He studies the bottlenecks and the inefficiencies of the enterprise, and he brings them in front of the senior management, in front of the IT strategists. You can look at the draftsman as the junior architect role, junior enterprise architect role, and the strategist as a senior enterprise architect role. The only difference between the draftsman and the strategist is what he does. And this is simply because of the experience that the strategist has with the modeling. He understands the models and he brings them in front of the senior management in such a way that they are palatable. The strategist's role is also very political in nature. He needs to keep in mind the interests and the concerns of the various stakeholders. And we mustn't forget that the senior management is also human beings. They don't just have organizational and professional agendas, they also have personal agendas. And the seniority of an architect brings in him the insight and the maturity to handle the stakeholders in a way that is best for the organization. So what is the TOGAF framework? Well, the TOGAF framework is a framework that helps you build these models and bring this information together that will allow you to create the boundaryless information flow goal. When I started working for a small organization where I was expected to do enterprise architecture, initially I did not understand what enterprise architecture is. I thought it's a very senior architect role. So I studied technical architecture further before when I was planning to give the interview for that role. Well, luckily, the interviewer did not understand what enterprise architecture is either. So he interviewed me for a really senior architect role, technical architect role, and I cracked it. And when I joined, and when my boss explained to me what needs to be done, when the scale of the task became apparent, I realized that I am not fit for this role, at least not at the moment. And then I started studying enterprise architecture. But initially, panic hit me. How are we going to do this? How are we going to connect all the applications in the business? Hundreds of applications, thousands of applications. How are we going to see how they are connected to each other? What the interfaces are between them? What is the data that they are using? What are the upstream systems, downstream systems? What are the various business processes? What are the various business functions? How do you create a mutual fund? That is a business process. You know, the fund manager comes in every morning and he designs a mutual fund. He takes some financial instruments, puts them together, models them, and creates a fund. It's a business process. Now, I did not understand how he does that. I still do not understand it completely, otherwise I would be a fund manager. But the point is, when the scale of the whole task of enterprise architecture becomes apparent, panic hits you. But if you know TOGAF, if you know not just TOGAF, but any enterprise architecture framework for that matter, it gives you a method to all this madness. It gives you a step-by-step approach to develop your enterprise architecture. It lets you focus on the relevant subjects at hand so that you can build your enterprise architecture from scratch. Well, I got certified at that point in time, and I realized that I will need TOGAF to become an enterprise architect. And then we developed our TOGAF framework in that organization. It gives you the architecture vision. So vision is what do you want to do? What is your strategy? What is your IT strategy? And what is it that you are trying to do? Now, the first look gives you an impression that you're trying to build the entire organization's enterprise architecture. But that's not the case. Architecture vision limits your scope. It lets you focus on a limited area so that you can develop the enterprise architecture to that area and then move on. Then comes business architecture that lets you focus on just the business aspects of the enterprise, just the processes, the stakeholders, the functions, the alignment between the functions, the communication between the various stakeholders, their goals, their objectives, what is it that they are trying to do, and aligning them with the drivers of the enterprise is the job of business architecture. Understanding them is the job of business architecture. Once you've documented the business architecture, the information systems architecture comes into the picture, which is applications and data. How do your applications and your data support your business? Are there too many applications doing the same thing? Are there any business functions that are missing applications and they're using other applications? It also gives you bottlenecks about excessive dependency on application vendors and what have you. And then what is the underlying technology that you're using to support these applications? Is this technology old? Is this technology new? Is it out of date? Is your technology approaching end of life? These are the questions that you need to answer in the technology architecture. And then you get to the opportunities and solutions phase. The opportunities and solutions phase allows you to create work packages. So you build your business architecture. You've looked at what you are as of now, and you've looked at where you want to go. You've looked at information systems architecture, which will support this target business architecture. So, and then you will study the existing architecture and understand how you are going to get from your current state to your future state. And then you will study the technology architecture and how it is going to support the target application and data architecture. And you're going to study the current state and understand how you're going to get from the current state to the future state. In the opportunities and solution phase, you consolidate all this work. You consolidate the differences between the current state and the future state and what are the various things that you will have to do. Now you understand the dependencies between the various components, various things that you need to do to get from the current state to the future state, and package them together. Once you've packaged them, after that you prioritize them based on the stakeholder requirements. So the stakeholders are going to come and say, okay, these are the systems that I need absolutely right now, and these systems can wait. So based on those prioritizations, you create an architecture roadmap. Now, while you're doing all this, there's a PMO team in your organization, and this PMO team is getting work from the likes of businesses, the various businesses, right? They're not sitting around doing nothing. So you need to align with the PMO teams and give your projects to them so that they can execute them. Then in the implementation governance phase, you provide oversight, and then in the architectural change management phase, you manage change. If you look at the TOGAF framework, it says business architecture is the core. It is the platform on which the information systems architecture and the technology architecture live. Information systems architecture practically live on the business architecture, supporting the business architecture, and they have no other job. And the technology architecture supports the information systems architecture. Now let's talk about careers in enterprise architecture. What kind of career paths do you have if you do a TOGAF certification? So let's say you're working in the software products business, okay? After you have done TOGAF certification, you can future-proof your product. So the job that you would be doing is studying the technology landscape, studying the business landscape over a period of time, and future-proofing the products that you have. So I know a very good friend of mine who works for a company that builds products for the financial services business, and they had an opening where they needed a TOGAF certified enterprise architect who would look into their products and future-proof them, who would study the products and look at the new things that are coming into the business, like, for example, cloud, right, or analytics, or mobility, or social, and how you could leverage these new changes that are coming into the business to improve your product quality. Based on this, you could build product roadmaps, so you can become a product architect, enterprise product architect, because you're a product company, so now enterprise architect basically means a senior product architect. And eventually, you can get into product leadership. Let's look at an IT consulting business. So I work for software services businesses, and what kind of future or career do you have in the consulting business? So after doing TOGAF certification, you can get into enterprise architecture modeling. Now, there are two ways that a company can really do enterprise architecture. The first is build an enterprise architecture team within the organization, and the second is outsource the enterprise architecture work for the first couple of iterations. Now, there are many organizations today that provide enterprise architecture consulting. That is their core business. Just like software consulting, you have enterprise architecture consulting. And these organizations hire TOGAF certified architects to go work with their customer, build an enterprise architecture team for them, set up the enterprise architecture practice, model the enterprise for them, and then move out. So the first thing that you would start doing after you've done TOGAF certification is enterprise architecture modeling. So you can get a job in a consulting company like that, and you can start building models for the customer. Because modeling, like I said, is the draftsman's job that needs to be done by somebody. So using the tools, of course, it's a little bit boring to build models because you are just studying the information that is available, and you are building models out of it. But it is not as boring as you might think, because it's not just about building documents. It's about talking. You will be talking to the stakeholders. You will be understanding their requirements. You'll be understanding the various elements of the enterprise architecture, and you'll be building models out of it. The next stage after you've been a modeler is enterprise architecture consulting, in which case you will be studying these models, and you will be providing strategic oversight or strategic insight to the senior managers of your customers. And then, just one moment. Right. Yeah, you'll be providing strategic insight to the senior managers of your customer, and finally become an enterprise architecture leader. So you can build your career in the consulting business as well, where you can do modeling initially, and then provide strategic insight, and then become an enterprise architecture leader. All right, you can run multiple accounts of doing enterprise architecture, providing strategic insight to various organizations, and hand them over there. There's also the element of setting up a team. So when you provide consulting, you go and set up the enterprise architecture team in your customer company, and then you move out. So it's a good leadership experience. And then the third situation that can exist is the enterprise architecture in the non-IT business, which I'm doing right now. I work for a leading healthcare company where I do enterprise architecture consulting. As in, I am an enterprise architect. I provide enterprise architecture services. There's an enterprise architecture team that I have to work with. But I did start as a modeler, and that too in a non-IT business. Initially, we only built models. We only collated information and built models. And over a period of time, we had an enterprise architecture repository that connected the various aspects of the enterprise with each other that would help us build and do impact analysis of various changes that we have to go through. And that is the end of my session. The only thing that I would like to say is change is happening. Organizations are going to have to become more and more agile going forward. In the next 7 to 8 years, I foresee enterprise architects coming to the forefront. Enterprise architecture are absolutely Architects are absolutely required for various businesses, and if you do not do enterprise architecture, organizations will not be able to survive. When that happens, when enterprise architects will be needed, that is when the certified, TOGAF certified, Zachman certified, all the enterprise architecture certified professionals will become the need of the hour. Thank you very much. With that, I would like to open it up for any questions that you might have. A question that has come is what kind of tools a modeler can use. It's a very good question. There are enterprise architecture tools available in the business today. Various companies are creating enterprise architecture tools that support the open group architecture framework. In fact, TOGAF certification, the one that I'm talking about here, is a people certification. The open group has also come up with a product certification. This product certification certifies various products and tools that support the TOGAF framework. There are various tools available in the market today like MEGA, which is MEGA, True, TROUX, and iServer by Orbit Software. And these tools help you build models. Orbit Software's iServer actually uses Microsoft Office tools like Visio, Word, Excel, and PowerPoint and such to aligns with it and uses it to build enterprise architecture products. It also comes with an architecture repository and reporting tools and dashboarding tools and what have you. So the tools are available. Once you do the TOGAF certification, obviously these tools are very expensive and not freely available. So organizations will have to invest in these tools to perform enterprise architecture work. It's not possible to do proper enterprise architecture without these tools. Well, I have received a question that says, in small companies, can the software architect be seen as an enterprise architect? No. The job is considerably different. The software architect job is like a building architect, for example. He looks at the plumbing, the electrical, the way the rooms are designed, the way the construction is designed, and so on. But the job of an enterprise architect can be described as a town planner who looks at how the building is connecting with the other buildings in the area, how are the passageways, how are the streets designed, and so on. So the scale at which both of these people work is different. A software architect looks at the construction of software. An enterprise architect looks at how that software aligns with other software, with the businesses, with the data that is used by the software, and so on. So the enterprise architect's job is outward looking, and the software architect's job is inward looking. And that is a misunderstanding in the industry these days. They are drastically different in nature, both the architects. In small companies, how can we justify the need of an enterprise architect is the question. It's a good question, really. You can't. See, the simple principle is if you have something simple that you can understand, that you can explain to somebody, then you can keep it in your mind. You don't have to write it down. But when the complexity of something increases beyond to an extent where you cannot keep it in your mind, when you cannot fathom it in your mind, when you cannot take strategic decisions about it, then you need to write it down on a piece of paper. And that piece of paper really is a model of the information that was there in your head. Once you have it on a piece of paper, you can always go back and refer to it so that you can make proper decisions. Now, if it's a really small company, where the strategic decisions can be made without having an enterprise architecture team, then it does not make sense, because enterprise architecture teams come with a certain cost. You have to hire enterprise architects, you have to manage, you have to hire some tools, buy some licenses for some enterprise architecture tools, and you have to spend a huge amount of time understanding how the various elements of the enterprise work. It is nice if you can do this when you are at least, before you become huge. Like most of the organizations start enterprise architecture work after they have become a behemoth, when it is very difficult to manage their information. It is nice if you start when you are not very big, when you're not too complex, when you're moderately complex, because it saves you from making wrong decisions and then paying for it at a late stage. But other than that, it's not really justifiable for a really small company to do enterprise architecture, to be very honest. All right, so if there are no other queries, then we bring this session to an end. Thank you very much for your time and for attending this session and giving me an opportunity I thank KnowledgeHut as well for giving me an opportunity to speak like this. And I hope that I have answered some of your questions and clarified some of your queries around what enterprise architecture is, what TOGAF is, and how it can help you in your career. Thank you very much, and have a good evening.